Um, um, it's a pleasure to be here. I've been here for a while, and on the history of my bike riding, I sold the last bike I had originally was when I was a kid, and once I learned how to drive, I didn't ride a bike again until I had kids of my own, which was when I was 40. My wife and I adopted two boys, and when they got bikes, then I decided to get another bike. So but I bought a Trek bike, which is sort of a traditional bike with a big seat and your feet don't snap into the pedals or anything. And when my kids stopped riding their bikes because they got their licenses, I started riding my Trek bike out on the bike path. I discovered that we had a great bike path down here. But I found that bike was not very good for going really longer distances. And I wanted to go longer distances. So I went over to the bike store in Glenville and ended up buying myself something that's called a road bike, which is the thing you'd be used to seeing where you got the handlebars that you lean on and you got a smaller, narrower seat. And the big change, another big change is you buy special shoes that snap into the pedals. And that's very important because with your feet snapped into the pedals, you can create a torque all the way around on your pedals, and you can go considerably faster with less effort. And I wanted to go farther on the bike path, and I just wasn't going to work with my Trek bike. So I bought one of these road bikes, which cost about $1,000. And then I spent a year learning how to ride it and getting comfortable on it. And my goal was to ride further. So the first long trip I did on my big bike, this new bike, was I rode on the bike path out to Utica and back, which is about 85 miles. So I spent the night in Utica and came back the next day. And that worked out all right. And then the following summer, I wanted to go further. So I rode the bike path out to Niagara Falls and back. That took 4.5 days each way. And again, I stayed in hotels, and staying in hotels was good, but the hotels, the decent hotels are, particularly when I drove out to Niagara Falls and back, that was the year of COVID. So a lot of stuff was closed. You couldn't even find a convenience store that was open to get yourself a bottle of water when you're on the trail. So the hotels, all the hotels I went to, it was an 85 or 90-mile ride each day to get to a hotel in a big city, because you had to go to a big city. So it was Utica, Syracuse, Rochester, Brockport, and then Niagara Falls and back, and then I came backwards. So that it was a pretty long ride. So after I did that, then I started thinking. I got involved with more bicycle communities. I also joined the Mohawk Hudson Cycling Club, and that was I got a picture of it's kind of small. That club's got probably I'm going to guess 200 members, and most of them are over 50. So I was quite surprised at the amount of gray hair I was seeing. I was happy to see gray hair because I had gray hair and wrinkles. And there are people who are in their 80s who are cycling. And when these guys ride 4 or 5 times a week, not everybody goes on every ride, but you get a notice on the ride and you go sign up, and people ride together. And sometimes there's only 5 people, and sometimes there'll be like 60 people. I was in a big ride once when there were that many people this summer, and there was about 4 or 5 guys and gals who were in their 80s. So anyway, moving right along. So that's what their banner is. I decided I was going to ride around Lake Ontario, and I also decided that I was not going to ride on my bike out to Rochester and then go around Lake Ontario and come back. So I drove my car to Rochester, which is midpoint at the bottom of Lake Ontario, parked it in a parking garage, got on my bike, and I rode to my first stop, which is Brockport. So let me see if I can get this to advance. All right, so here's the map. I don't know if you guys can see this well or not, but what I did in preparation was I had a map out each ride. I didn't want to be riding and then at the end of the day not be near a hotel, because when you've done 50 or 60 miles, you better find a hotel soon. You want, at least for me anyway, I wanted to be on a hotel. So I mapped it out in great detail, hotel by hotel, where I was going to stay. And then I have a device. I downloaded all the daily rides as GPS files into a little bike computer I have, which goes on my bike. And so each morning when I started my ride, I bring up the day 1 ride, the day 2 ride, whichever ride I was doing, and it would tell me all my rights and left turns and all that kind of stuff, and how much farther I had to go. So that was not something I had to worry about. So my map was, I started at Rochester, and day 1 I went to Brockport, and then day 2 I would cross the border, and I ended up in St. Catharines. And I skipped that part. This is the cycle computer software I worked with, where you go in and you can set a start point and you can set an end point, and it'll fill in all the blanks with a red line for you. But then you have to review that to make sure that there's nothing too insane in there. You can see the profile that you're riding to, and this is a bit distorted. These look like they're big hills, but they're not. It's because the scale here is like 60 miles, and so there's a lot of territory, and the things that are fairly easy hills. So there are hills, but they're not as intense as they might look when you see them here. Although that's something I check out. I can put my cursor on here, and I can see that, okay, well, this is a hill over a distance of 1 mile or 2 miles or 3 miles. So it's still a hill, but it's not. No, you're not doing that. But that's the point of reviewing this thing. So I don't do that, because I don't want to get to I wasn't into hills. All right, so.
Was your bike half electric, or was it just all you?
No, it's all me. It's all me.
No electric at all?
No. I'm not going to get myself an electric bike. It was just well, certainly cycling is wonderful for your fitness level. It's terrific. And as I say, I was quite impressed by the spectrum of people who were still riding bikes.
Is that all bike path, or is that roads? Like you're biking on a.
So they're around Lake Ontario. There are a lot of official bike paths, particularly on the north side. But there are places, and this particular thing goes. This is at the northeast end of Lake Ontario, and yes, there are stretches where you're on the road. And but the nice thing about New York and Ontario is that the smaller highways, the 1 lane each way, also have large shoulders, and I think that's so you have a flat tire. There's a place to change your tire. And I guess there's other reasons for that. So there's actually that's a big bike lane, and that's in some cases where you'd be on. So this just shows a stretch of, as I say, in southern Ontario. It was pretty. There was lots of water. But anyway, this is what I see on my cycle computer, and I'd figure out all my rides on this. And so this is my daily schedule. You can see how much I'm doing each day. That was 63.5 miles, then 48.5 and 49.5. When I got to Toronto, I had a bunch of friends who insisted on riding with me. So I lost a couple of days there because they had slower bikes. And so I had to slow down for them. And so anyway, I lost a day or two there. But that was good fun. I'm glad I did that. So now the total mileage was 543.5 miles back to Rochester.
You did 83 miles in one day?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Once you get to 50, I mean, you're just getting tired. It doesn't bother your legs. It's more your mental concentration. It's tiring, but you sleep well. So this is a picture on my second day I made Niagara Falls. I took a picture of the falls. Obviously, you could see my bike there and how I got it loaded. I didn't carry a lot of bags. Not into that. And there was another picture. I might look exhausted there. So then then I made it around the bend to on the Canadian side to a place called Oakville, which is where I met one of my friends. He and I went to kindergarten together, so I've known him for a long time. And he had a multi-speed bike as well, but he hadn't been doing any training. And he said, "Well, look, let's do 20 miles." So I said, "Well, are you sure you want to do 20 miles?" And he insisted. So we did the 20 miles, but he had not trained for it. And so that's something I'd done. And the training makes a big difference. So he was pretty exhausted at the end of it, but not too exhausted to have a beer or dinner.
Not to get in there, it's getting back.
Yeah. And as soon as my other friend, the first friend there left, then my friend Mac Ewell, who was best man at my wedding, I was best man at his wedding, he joined up and we went for a ride together. This is my younger brother, who is in the Royal Ontario Artillery Band. And he was on that day that I was there, the band was going to be playing at the CNE, Canadian National Exhibition. So that's why he's wearing his uniform. And I got a picture of the band playing at the CNE. And so then from once I left there, I spent the night in Toronto, and after that, I didn't have any other friends I'd be meeting, so I did the longer miles, and so the next day I made it to the other side of Toronto to a place called Oshawa, and then I made it from there to Belleville, and this shows what some of the bike paths on the Canadian side looked like east of Toronto. They're very nice. In some cases, they're almost like divided highways. There's a yellow line going down the middle, and then there's room to pass on each lane on the sides. So it's pretty fantastic. That doesn't go the whole way on the lake, but certainly some parts of it.
How was customs, Chris, getting into Canada?
No problem, but I had to get in the line with the cars, and the traffic was going slowly, so I spent about an hour behind a Corvette with big exhaust pipes going boom, 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 boom. So I was choking by the time I got out of there. So this is a place called Belleville, which is on the east end of Lake Ontario. It's quite pretty. Lots of boats. It's getting close to the St. Lawrence River there. And so I stopped there.
Isn't there a book about Belleville?
Pardon?
Isn't there a book, The Cats of Belleville?
Sorry, that again?
A book about Belleville.
Is there a book? I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure there is.
What time of year?
Oh, I did this in August. Yeah, so I could count on good weather. And it only rained one day, but that was in the evening.
Didn't get too hot. You think heat would also be difficult? Is it hot?
Yeah, yeah, certainly. But I'm drinking fluids all the time.
Did you encounter any of the smoke problem we had last summer from Canada, coming down from Canada?
Oh, yeah.
I forget now. It certainly wasn't a problem anyway. Yeah, it didn't bother me where I was anyway. Where am I? Okay. All right. So then I made it to a place called Kingston, and Kingston is where I'm now going to have to get back in the United States. But in order to do that, there's 2 ferries and 1 island you have to go across. Wolf Island being the island. You can drive your cars there. I don't know if any of you have done it. Okay, so Kingston, you get on the ferry, you go to Wolf Island, then there's like a 2 or 3 mile jaunt to get to the other side of Wolf Island. And I've done that many times on my car, but not on a bike. So when you're on a bike, now you're competing with the car. So the ferry opens up. They let me out first, but that didn't matter because the cars poured out after me. And so I was sort of trying to not get run over while I was driving to the other side. And then there's a much smaller ferry there. And when you get off that, you're in the United States. And so that's right here. It's kind of small. And so my next ride, once I left Kingston, it was kind of scary. I took a day off in Kingston, actually. I was preparing myself for this ride because there's very few services on this road down here. So I was nervous about it. And it's a little hillier. So along here, it's all flat, but now I'm going to see hills. And so I took a day off just to rest, and then I blasted and I made it down to the end down here in reasonable time. That was what the route looks on my cycle computer. And that's me taking the ferry. And then this is where I stopped for lunch on the way down, which was a nice restaurant. And then finally I ended up staying at a place that was like a bed and breakfast. And the lady was very nice. I had a little apartment to myself, and she was very helpful. So when I left there, I then had to come around through the bottom side of the lake. And now this lake, as you come around here, it starts to get hillier. So I had to work harder on some of the rides. And so I made it to just past where is it? Where's the university town there? Oswego, there we are. There's Oswego. So I made it around through Oswego and stopped at a nice place. On Sodas Point. And so that was and I was kind of celebrating there because I figured I'd made it. This would be my last night on the road. And it was quite pretty and quite expensive too. And so that's their front lawn where the bed and breakfast was. And then I did my last jaunt back down to Rochester, and loaded up my car and came back home.
And
So
slept for a week.
yes, yes. So yeah, went quite well, and I'm now planning a trip. Actually, since I've joined the cycling club. There are a lot of people riding across the country and stuff, so I hope to hook up on one of those rides across the country.
That's fantastic. That's wonderful. I had a friend who rode across the country.
Yeah,
And
a lot of people have done it.
He said he was lonely, but then at other times, he was going to camp out in some farmer's field, and they took him into the house and fed him, and said it's amazing the people across the country. Yeah,
I don't like to camp, so I camp in hotels. So I'm gonna. When I leave in the morning, I want to know the hotel I'm going to land at. But then you can cycle if you want to, you can join official tours going across the country. I don't know if I'll do that or not, but.
Did you feel lonely at any time?
Not particularly. I mean, even when you're on bikes, if you're with a bunch of people, you can't really have a conversation. Right. It's comforting to know they have a problem. There's a lot of people around, but other than that. How many
people were with you?
When I went this time?
Yeah.
No, I was by myself.
Oh, you're by yourself.
Yeah, this time I rode it all by myself.
Chris, was this a personal ride, or did you raise money for an organization? What was the motivation between the?
No, there's a guy in my club who's done that, and he's in the military. I didn't want to. That was going to be too complicating. So I just maybe I'll do that in the future, but didn't do it this time.
I'm trying to think of the picture of your bike. Obviously, you were carrying your pack. Did you carry it on your back, or was there?
No, I didn't have any pack on my back. That was my phone. I had a little pouchy thing that I put a wallet in my phone. That's about the only thing I had on my personal.
So you really didn't bring a suitcase?
Absolutely not. There's 2 pairs of underwear, 3 pairs of socks, toothbrush, a couple of shirts. That's it.
Wow.
Oh, I brought along my running shoes. The biking shoes aren't good for walking in. At least the pair I bought a cheap pair, so you can't really walk in them. So I had to have a set of running shoes that I put on when I was not going to be on my bike.
So that kind of bike is built to be able to have like a touring pack.
Well, I added a rack to the bike. I put a bike rack on it. Yeah, I bought something called a gravel bike. I didn't know there were these differences. So it looks like a racing bike. It's got all the fancy stuff, but it's sturdier. So I put a bike rack on it, and then I bought some saddlebags, which sort of hung off of that. And
you had a picture of it, didn't you?
Yeah. And then there's another thing on the top. Yep. So yeah.
Next time I'm traveling anywhere, I'm gonna think of what you packed.
Travel light.
I always.
Yeah, you got to travel light, because otherwise you pay a penalty when you've got to carry that. And then just keeping your bike up when you get off your bike. If you got a huge weight on that bike, then it wants to fall over. So.
Wow.
Anyway.
That's why he traveled alone, because he had 2 pairs of underwear, 3 socks, and 2 shirts.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you're always in a high wind, so it doesn't matter. Yeah. So very good. Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. That was so interesting. And thank you for pitching in at the last minute when our other speaker had to cancel.
Yes, well, it was a pleasure.
Very nice.
Pleasure.
The driver's nice too. There's a meme about bikers and car drivers and sharing the road, and not everybody.
Mostly either I was on a dedicated bike path or there was a large shoulder. Most of the time, there's a few times when that wasn't the case. And when I got to the far end of Lake Ontario, there were a couple of roads, but everybody was quite respectful. And there are a lot of other cyclists out there. So, yeah.
As a side note, the guy who worked for me when I was in Watertown, his grandfather shot the wolf where Wolf Island got his name.
Oh,
He said,
that was the last wolf, was it?
I don't know. But anyway, he said.
Oh, poor wolf.
I've ridden from Hudson down. Does it have any mechanical jobs?
No, that was my big thing. I was worried about a flat tire. I mean, I know how to change a flat tire, but I'm not a wizard at it. So fortunately, I didn't have to do that. I was lucky.
Does
But
Lon have any questions? Lon online, does he have any questions? for you?
I know, I don't think so. He doesn't seem to be indicating he's got a question.
I have a friend-
Oh, there he was off
I have
somewhere.
a
So
friend who's really into cycling. He just turned 70. His tradition was until a couple of years ago to ride his age. So at 65, he went 65 miles.
oh yeah, right.
But now he divides it amongst 2 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you get to a point, you should start
But
coming
he's
back
a
down.
serious rider.
Hmm.
He went with his son. He did the Niagara to Albany. You know,
Yeah, that one, right.
Hudson organized it.
Yeah.
He's done that a couple of times.
Yeah. It's a great sport, and as I say, there's a lot of seniors out there doing some pretty good mileage and enjoying themselves. So it's nice to see that.
You plan to do Lake Superior next?
Yeah, so I might ride around Lake Erie, but Lake Superior, no, not a chance. There's no bike paths up there anyway, so that would be dangerous.
Lake Erie might take you a week.
Yeah.
Chris, what's the most fun bike trip you've done with the Mohawk Hudson Cycling Club?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Well, it's I guess they're all fun. It's a great group of people, and so I guess I haven't any particular ride, but I am impressed at how many rides they do a week. It's there's 4 or 5 rides a week all year round.
What kind of rides are they? Where do they go?
Very rarely are they just flat rides on the Mohawk Hudson Trail. There's usually hills in there that you got to climb. So I've gotten better at hill climbing.
Do they do any overnighters?
Yeah, I'm not as a club, I don't think, but I'm sure lots of the riders on there, they're always riding. One guy I was riding with, he rides absolutely every day. So,
Are there any particular destinations they have when they ride?
well, when they ride around, it's mostly in the Capital District area, and they'll do, and usually rides are anywhere from 30 to 70 miles. They start out low in the spring. They start with short rides. They'll be like 30 miles, and by the end of the year, they're doing 100-mile rides. So I haven't been on any of their 100-mile rides. So anyway, I'd highly recommend it. There's lots of
thank
folks
you.
in it.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Oh, we're a little early today.
I had a question for Chris.
Yeah, shoot.
When you say your feet are strapped in, how do you manage getting off your bike or stopping? Is there a trick to getting your foot released?
Yeah, on the type I have, you just push your heel out, and so that's a good point. When I first got the bike, I spent about 2 weeks only riding in my subdivision because I was practicing that very thing, coming to fast stop, getting your feet out, and I just wanted to have total confidence doing that. So once you get the motion, it's just like anything else. It's reflex.
Very good.
So, but it is possible to fall over. I did that once.
Any other business? Any other Kathy, Lois, anybody else want to talk about anything else?
Yeah, I think